There's a certain kind of person who never asks for help, not because they don't need it, but because somewhere deep down, needing feels dangerous. They've learned to carry everything alone: the groceries, the grief, the weight of a life that never stops demanding more. And when someone offers a hand, they smile politely and say, "I'm fine," not out of pride, but out of something quieter, something that whispers, "The moment you lean, you fall." You see them everywhere. The friend who always shows up but never calls when they're struggling. The colleague who handles crisis after crisis without ever admitting they're drowning. The partner who gives endlessly but flinches when you try to give back. They've built their entire existence around one unspoken rule: safety means self-reliance, and relying on anyone else is a risk they refuse to take. But this isn't just a personality trait. It's a carefully constructed defense mechanism, a psychological armor forged in moments when trust became pain, when the people who were supposed to catch you let you fall, when love felt conditional, when support came with strings attached, or when it simply never came at all. Psychology calls this hyperindependence. It describes the pattern of avoiding emotional or practical dependence on others, often stemming from early relational wounds. And beneath the surface of someone who seems unshakably strong lies a nervous system that learned a brutal lesson. People leave. People disappoint. People use your vulnerability against you. So the safest thing to do is need nothing from anyone. If this perspective resonates, you can support the video by liking it. The roots of this psychology often begin in childhood. A child reaches out for comfort and receives rejection. Maybe the parent was overwhelmed, emotionally unavailable, or simply unable to respond. The child's brain, desperate to make sense of the pain, draws a conclusion. My need caused this. My need is the problem. And slowly, the child learns to suppress that need, to smile when they're hurting, to solve problems alone, to become the strong one because being the vulnerable one felt like inviting abandonment. Attachment theory explains this through the lens of avoidant attachment. When caregivers are inconsistent or dismissive of emotional needs, the child develops a strategy. Distance equals safety. They learn to self-soothe, to minimize their emotions, to become an island. And that island follows them into adulthood. Relationships become transactions where they give but rarely receive, where they manage others' emotions but hide their own, where intimacy stops at a certain depth because going deeper feels like drowning. Comment alone if this describes your experience. There's a strange paradox in hyperindependence. On the outside, these people appear confident, capable, even invulnerable. They're the ones everyone leans on, the problem solvers, the steady presence in chaos. But internally, they're exhausted, because independence, when it becomes rigid, is not freedom. It's a cage built from fear. Fear of being a burden. Fear of rejection. Fear that if you show your cracks, people will see you as weak and walk away. Neuroscience reveals that prolonged self-reliance in the absence of safe connection keeps the nervous system in a state of subtle hypervigilance. The brain scans for threats constantly. Relationships become evaluated not for their warmth, but for their potential to hurt. Every offer of help is analyzed for hidden motives. Every act of kindness is met with suspicion, not because these individuals are cynical, but because their survival once depended on not trusting too easily. This pattern doesn't only affect relationships, it shapes entire lives. These are the people who overwork because asking for time off feels like admitting weakness, who refuse medical help until the pain becomes unbearable, who handle grief alone because sharing it feels like imposing. They've internalized a belief so deeply that it operates like a reflex. Needing is dangerous. Depending is weakness. And asking means risking the one thing they can't afford to lose. Control type. YES. If this helped you understand something about yourself. But here's what rarely gets said. The cost of this self-sufficiency is invisible. It shows up in the quiet moments, in the exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, in the loneliness that exists even in a crowded room, in the ache of carrying everything and having no place to put it down. Because humans are not designed for total independence. We are wired for connection, for interdependence, for the exchange of care that says, "You held me yesterday, I hold you today." When someone refuses that exchange, they don't just protect themselves from pain, they also block themselves from love, real love, the kind that doesn't come with conditions, the kind that doesn't vanish when you're not perfect. Because love requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires trust, and trust is the one thing their nervous system learned to ration. Research on social isolation shows that chronic emotional self-reliance can lead to increased stress, cardiovascular strain, and even shorter lifespans. The body suffers when the heart stays guarded. Not because independence is wrong, but because it was never meant to be absolute. Even the strongest trees have roots that intertwine underground. They don't stand alone. They hold each other up through hidden networks of support. If someone you know might benefit from this, feel free to share it. So what does healing look like for someone who feels safer not depending on anyone? It doesn't begin with forcing vulnerability. It begins with understanding, with recognizing that their independence is not arrogance, it's adaptation. It's the best strategy they had at the time. And it worked. It kept them safe when nothing else did. But what protected them then might be limiting them now. Healing starts with tiny experiments in trust, not grand gestures, not dramatic confessions, just small moments. Letting someone carry the groceries, saying yes when a friend offers to help, admitting even once, "I'm not okay," and watching what happens. Does the world collapse? Does the person leave? Or do they simply stay steady and unchanged? Therapy can help, specifically approaches that focus on reworking attachment patterns and building distress tolerance. Learning that dependence and independence are not opposites, but parts of a spectrum. That healthy relationships involve both giving and receiving. That asking for help is not weakness, it's connection. If this gave you clarity, comment safe below. But perhaps the most profound shift happens when someone realizes this. Their fear of depending on others was never really about others. It was about themselves, about the belief that they are not worthy of care unless they earn it, that their needs are too much. That love is something you must deserve through perfection, strength, and silence. And the moment that belief is questioned, something ancient begins to soften. Because the truth is, you were never meant to carry everything alone. The weight you've been holding was always meant to be shared. And the people who love you, truly love you, don't see your need as a burden. They see it as an invitation. A chance to be trusted, a chance to give back what you've given so freely to everyone else. There is no shame in needing, no weakness in leaning, no failure in admitting that sometimes you cannot do it alone. That's not dependence, that's being human. And being human means that your strength and your softness can exist in the same breath. That you can be capable and still need comfort. That you can hold others and still deserve to be held. So, if you've spent your life believing that safety means never depending on anyone, hear this. You are not broken for protecting yourself. You are not weak for building walls. But you are also allowed to open the door, just a crack. Just enough to let someone see that beneath the armor, you are still the child who once reached out, hoping someone would reach back. And maybe this time they will. And maybe this time you'll let them stay. If this resonates, like the video. And let me ask you this. What would it feel like to let someone carry just one thing for you? Comment your answer below. And if these reflections help you see yourself more clearly, subscribe for more insights into the quiet psychology of being human.